Welcome, everyone, to episode 1 of the Oakland 68s podcast. I'm your host, Anson Casanares. Joined by me is my co-host, the president of the Oakland 68s, Jorge Leon. And
Otherwise known as Dada by this guy.
Dada. And if I call him George, I've been calling him George for pretty much since I've known him. I'm basically grandfathered in this thing. So
he is grandfathered in.
George is Jorge. And joining us today, we could not think of a better guest host to kick off our podcast. Everyone knows him from the Bay Area sports media, Emmy Award winner, friend of the show. We've known this man for years. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Casey Pratt to the show. Casey,
what's up? How we doing?
How are you?
I too call Jorge Dada.
Wow. Hey,
he does.
Breaking news to start the show.
Here we go. This turned to a whole new platform.
Especially those Oakland Roots games, before the tailgating.
Oh my God.
Man, it's awesome to have Casey on, man. Casey, man, you've been doing a lot of things, man. A lot of things. But I'm happy that you're the first guest on here. How you feeling?
Honestly, it's an honor and a privilege to be the first guest on the show. Hi, Jorgito. Because, I like to spend a lot of time with you guys at the tailgates, at the games, all over the place. But I think it's cool to just have an open, crazy Oakland sports talk, and we'll try not to cry. I know it's tough times. I'll try to keep it together for you guys.
Is there something bad happening, or did I miss something?
Aside from the presidential debate, no, nothing outside the usual that we deal with on a daily basis. Growing up, fans of the Oakland Athletics.
We are. So, Casey, everyone knows you pretty well, especially over the Summer of Sell movement, which we all are very familiar with. But you have a new job. Can you please elaborate on your new position? First of all, congratulations. Well deserved. Very happy for you. There couldn't be someone who is as passionate about the city of Oakland like us than you. So I'm very glad that you are working closely with the mayor, with the city of Oakland. But to everyone who's listening who may not be too familiar, can you please let them know about your new position?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, as you both well know, the story of Oakland sports became a story of politics in a lot of ways, right? And so over the course of covering the A's and the Raiders and the Warriors, but mostly the A's, to some extent, I ended up covering a lot of politics. So now I can say I know like the last 3 mayors who I probably never would have spoken with otherwise. But in covering this story, you get to know the people that are making the news, the people that are actually doing the work in the city. And, I got to know the mayor's chief of staff. I got to know the mayor really well. And to be quite honest, I really like them. I think they're really good people. I think they get a bad rap and they're working really hard. And when the opportunity presented itself and they gave me a call, you know what? Sometimes when opportunity knocks, you just answer the door. And that's what I did.
Absolutely. And is there anything I know it's a whole new world for you with this role. Is there anything that you miss about being, like a sports anchor, a producer, a broadcaster? Is there anything that you miss about the old gig versus your new role now? And yeah, just explain. I'm curious myself. This is not even an interview anymore. It's just questions.
No, what's interesting is when you cover sports, you get to go to a lot of games for free, right? Whether you're credentialed or whether the teams give you free tickets just because they want you to be there talking about their team, and just chilling and watching sports for free. I really liked, obviously, I can't do that anymore. So I buy my own tickets. I don't get credentials anymore. But I still really, in a lot of ways, it's kind of funny because I took this job and the very first thing that popped up was, trying to finish this Oakland Coliseum sale, which is something I've been extremely well versed in. I talked to all the players on every side of that situation, whether it's the county, whether it's the A's, whether it's the city, whether it's ASEG. I was already talking to all those people every day. So it's kind of funny to then just jump into this role where I'm still talking to the same people. Or, you remember what happened with the Oakland Ballers a month or so ago, where it's the end of the Ballers and there's drama and there's all these things and it was all overblown. But, that's something else I dealt with at work, which is funny because I already know everybody involved in that story. Or it's the Oakland Roots getting to play at the Oakland Coliseum, which is, again, something that I was covering on a daily basis and ended up being one of my main responsibilities as I took this job. So yeah, it's been interesting in the sense that a lot of the things that have been at the forefront have all been things that I was kind of already doing anyway. So the timing couldn't have been better on my part, I guess.
Nice.
So
Go
I have a
ahead.
question. I know, obviously the whole sports stuff is very interesting in Oakland. Obviously, we're going to lose the A's. We lost the Raiders, the Warriors, and a lot of questions that I guess I see everywhere is, Oakland has a lot more to worry about than sports, right? And while that's true, how critical are all these teams right now, especially like the Roots, the Ballers, and the Soul, to the community? If coming down from the office or the mayor's office, how do you see that?
Well, I think that what a lot of people say sometimes is like, oh, you got all these issues here. How can you handle these issues here? And well, honestly, when you're elected to run a city, you have to be able to multitask. A lot of issues are extremely important in a lot of ways, but you have to be able to handle them all at once. That's part of the job. So I don't think that you're necessarily ignoring one for the benefit of the other. You got to be able to handle it all. That's why you're put in that position to be in charge. So yeah, I think that even through the A's situation, and you saw it firsthand. You were right there throughout all of this. It was never a situation where it wasn't important to keep the A's. It wasn't a paramount issue. I mean, I can tell you for sure it was a tremendously important issue, and it still is. And getting the Roots to the Coliseum, hopefully getting the Malibu, like getting the Soul there too, I think are all tremendously important issues. And look at the Ballers, right? When the Ballers idea came to be after the reverse boycott, this is actually really interesting information, not to diverge too much, but I got a call one day that I ignored. I got a DM that I ignored. And then one day a reporter walked into my office and handed me a phone and said, these people want to talk to you. On the other end of the phone, I talked to somebody who wouldn't tell me who they were, what they wanted to talk about, but they wanted to meet me in person. So I said, come to my office where there's security. That person ended up, I brought him into the conference room at ABC. That person ended up being Paul Friedman. And I talked to him for a long time. And we joke that is the secret meeting, the pre-secret meeting,
Wow.
because it was the very first meeting that he had about the Ballers was to pitch me on the idea and get my thoughts. And I told him what I thought. And then they had the secret meeting, which I actually didn't attend because I was at Disneyland. And then he said, hey, do you think you could introduce me to Jorge Leon? And he was really scared to talk to you.
Why is everyone scared of him? I don't understand. I don't get it.
But the reason I bring that point up is just that when the Ballers idea came to be, you guys saw how fast it came together. And what did the city do? The city gave them a list of things they needed to do to show they were serious. And when they did it, they got that thing done in a matter of months, right? So I think that sports is critically important to Oakland. I think it's important to our culture. It's important to the fabric of everything that we do. Like you, me, Jorge, aka Dada, we all know each other because we spent time at the Coliseum together, right? Like, I don't know that we ever would have ran into each other elsewise, but here we are, instant friends, because we're bonded by Oakland sports. And I think that's why it's important and it's a beautiful thing. And I think that everybody in the city acknowledges that it is a top priority to make sure that we can keep that culture together.
Yeah, like a big thing, what we want to do with this podcast is not just make it purely just an Oakland based podcast, but we want to talk about Oakland. We want to talk about the politics. We want to talk about the community and the importance, like you just said, about how community happens from sports in general, not just Oakland, but just sports. Like you just said, if it wasn't for the Oakland A's or the Oakland Coliseum, we may not have all met. And it's just something that we're trying to keep alive, something that we want to just talk about what's going on with the city, with the town, and the future of the sports scene. So thanks for sharing that story, because that wasn't even planned. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't even know that even happened. So.
Yeah, I keep telling people that, just not to like self-promote here, but I just did a podcast with Tim Keon, right? And the best way to explain it was like, hey, that's our plaza. That's how we all met. That's how all this thing just kind of happened. I mean, Casey, you ended up have been a great friend, and people should know that you're a way better person than anything else, first and foremost, right? And so Anson as well, like that's my brother right there. So all this because of the A's and the power of sports, right? And I just wanted to put that out there. And then my son proceeded to give me all these things that I've collected throughout the years.
Man,
I don't know who that guy is, but so
why do you even have that? Anyways. So obviously with the summer of sale, Casey, you were one of the main ones in the media that were telling the truth, that had the people's back. And the people, I mean, the sports community, the fans back. Like, you told the truth from a professional perspective, and as sometimes honestly like a Oakland bias perspective, because we're very passionate about our city that we grew up in and our sports teams. The sub movement went worldwide. It was something that I and a lot of us are proud of to be a part of. My question to you is this: it's what stood out to you the most during that whole summer, or that whole movement that we just did? I mean, it's not over yet. I know it's kind of feels like it is, but there's still some things that can pop up. But, as of right now, I feel like we have established ourselves as we're not going to go down quietly. What we wanted to do was to change the narrative, because everyone's saying that, hey, like, of course Stays are leaving, there's no one that goes to games, blah blah blah. I don't even need to go into that, but what is it that you took away from that whole movement?
I mean, first and foremost, as a person covering it, I was really just telling your guys' story. I wasn't the story. I wasn't behind any of it. In fact, I think when I first heard the idea of the reverse boycott, I said, don't do it. It's a terrible idea. I changed my mind later before it happened, but that was my first instinct. So, like, for everybody listening to this, like, these guys did all of it. I just talked about it. That's all I did. That being said, I think the biggest thing I learned in this whole process, and, to circle back to the point we just made about, how we all came together because of this community, this fan community. I think about, Jorge, who met his wife, Michelle. Jorgito was there all because of, like, being in right field. And, like, I think of my kids and taking them to the games, and how much it hurts to know that they won't be able to take their kids to the games. Like my grandpa have been taking me to the Coliseum since I was a baby. And so, I think of all that, and it brings me to this one point. And this is the one thing I learned, and this is a long-winded way to explain the answer to your question, is that it was never the A's. It was never the A's. It was never the Raiders. It was never the Warriors. It was always the people that made it special. Like, when you think of the Raiders, obviously they had great runs, right? But you think of the black hole. The black hole was the people, right? The right field bleachers, the experiences out there were the people that made it special. And when I go to Oakland Roots games, when I go to Oakland Ballers games, maybe the A's are gone, but it's the same people that are there. And that makes it special to me. And I can sit there and I could say to my two daughters, hey, do you guys want to go to an A's game today? They'll be like, nah. You want to go to a Ballers game today? Yeah. You want to go to a Roots game? Hell yeah. They'll go to a Roots game over anything. Like, if I could put every single team free tickets, I'll pay for them this time. But they will choose the Roots over every other team in the whole Bay Area. Like, yesterday, the 49ers played on Monday Night Football. I picked up my daughter. She's like, the Niners play today? What's happening? Like, they don't care. But if I offer them some tickets to go to the Roots, oh my God, they're in instantly. And so I think that tells you that it's about the experience, right? It's about the people you experienced it with. It's about how you have fun with those people. And then the stuff on the field, that's the product that brings us all together. But what truly made it special the whole time was the Oakland sports fans. It wasn't the teams. And I can say that, like, opening day, Oakland Coliseum, parking lot protests, right? Like, nobody's supposed to go in. If you wanted to go in, nobody was going to fault you. But where else are you going to have thousands of pissed off at MLB fans of a sport all drinking and tailgating in a parking lot for 5+ hours and have zero police intervention, zero paramedic intervention, zero fights, zero drama? Only in Oakland are you going to see that. And it was always because of the people.
Yeah, that opening night boycott block party, that was, I think, the first and only time in my life where I've seen that many people as equally as pissed off as they were rejoiceful. It was very, like, it's a weird thing to say, but it kind of just proves to the fact how special this Oakland sports community is. Like, for example, I like taking people who aren't too diehard, or people who aren't from Oakland to Oakland based events, whether they're sports games, concerts, street festivals, whatever. For example, my girlfriend, she's from Phoenix. She loves going to Roots games. She loves anything that's Oakland sports based. She loves seeing the passion, and she's told me multiple times. And I've also heard it from her sister that, after we had our fans fest, I said, "Hey, like, what's your honest opinion of what's happening today? Like, do you understand the movement? Do you like, what's the vibe like?" And they both said, "I've never seen this much civic pride. Like, even in Arizona, people love their teams, but this is something different." And considering the fact that you guys are fighting to keep your teams here, like the A's, and despite that you're backing the Ballers and the Roots this hard, they don't understand why we're even going through this. So the community is important to this city and sports in general, but it just proves, I mean, it's something special we have in Oakland. So
Yeah, I mean, I like before the reverse boycott, man, I had a phone call with security personnel from the A's, and the day before, and they asked me, it's like, what do you think? What do you guys got planning? Or do you think it's gonna go crazy? You guys gonna do anything like that? And I just told them, I was like, look, we only have one thing that we care about, and one thing only, is we want they stay in Oakland. That's all. And you're just gonna see how much we want them here, whether you know whether it's us in the parking lot or packing up that stadium with 30K. That's what I told them. Like, there's not going to be no incidents. There's not no violence. Like, we don't want none of that. We want they stay in Oakland, plain and simple. And then when we went to the reverse boycott, all the stores were closed. No concessions were open up until like probably in the behind the backstop. And so to me, it's just like it speaks volumes to like how they feel about us, right? But we continue to prove them wrong. So I remember that vividly. Like, that is insane to think that we're gonna do something crazy like that.
like, yeah, that it is wild, because I feel like people are just expecting, because it's Oakland and this is the third team that is leaving the town, that there's gonna be fights broke like left and right, things gonna be broken, stolen, this and that. But I don't know, like it's like looking back on everything now that enough time has passed. Like, I feel like the reverse boycott was 5 years ago. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into all this planning that the 68 like all the fans do. There's so much planning, and on top of this, I've said this multiple times in different interviews. Like, we all have lives outside of being sports fans. We all have like George has a family, wife and kids. Like, we all work full-time jobs. We have hobbies outside of sports, and it's a lot of work, man. I don't know. It's just, I remember thinking, just like you were saying, of how it felt like people were bracing for the worst, but I felt the complete opposite. It's weird, seeing how people are like kind of just trying to create like this sabotage type of situation. But no, I've never felt that like any threats of like any crime or anyone breaking something or anyone getting in fights. It's really weird to even think about that now. Like, even with the Fans Fest, we've had how many thousands of people out there?
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands.
We had,
no, I'm just kidding.
but we had permits, security team that we all did ourselves. We all organized.
It was almost a million. I'm not gonna lie.
Almost a million.
17 million
About,
people were there. 17,000 quadrillion people were at Fest. Not one.
No, but it's important to note, like, you guys aren't event planners, right? You got like normal jobs and stuff. Like to pull off the reverse boycott and have like the largest ever fan funded giveaway that ended up in Cooperstown, to the reverse boycott, which was one of the coolest days ever. There had to have been over 10 to 15,000 people there, all honesty. This is stuff that isn't like your job. You're not experts in this, yet somehow it goes off without a hitch. And I think, again, it's a testament to you guys. It's a testament to the people. But I want to go back to something, because I think this is something that we got to talk about. We can't talk about it enough. And the one thing that happened at the reverse boycott, it was the most magical evening. But at the end of the game, some trash, not a lot, a couple people threw trash onto the field. And I want to get ahead of that. I want to get ahead of that, because I want everybody that attends this last A's game to know. If you throw stuff on the field, John Fisher is not coming out there to pick it up, right? John Fisher's probably not even in the state. Who has to pick up that trash? The groundskeepers that are all getting fired, the security personnel who are all getting laid off, the people that don't deserve to be picking up your trash are going to be the ones picking it up. So please don't throw stuff onto the field. It's not cool. And I want to keep saying that as this last day approaches. I do not want to see that happen.
I will say that that if that's the worst thing that happens during these protests, to me, it's like, look, man, they're pissed off, right? But if that's the worst thing, I prefer that over, a violent incident, right?
No, you're right about that. I still don't want to see it. I don't want these people to have to pick. I got to talk to the groundskeepers like the day after the reverse boycott, and it was like such a magical day, and I was so like, God, that was awesome. And then they're like, man, that sucked. We had to pick up all this trash. It was like, it was a downer on everything. So I just wish it didn't happen. Is all.
Yeah. I remember yelling at one of the groundskeepers. I was like, I can volunteer. I can go down there to help you.
We'll pick it up.
Climb over the scoreboard. Oh man, yeah, that is a good point. Just think about like the employees that are there for that last home game at the Coliseum, because a lot of this, there's a lot of just closure that people are coming to terms with. And if you've been coming to the Coliseum for years, not only do you get to know your fellow fans that are turned to family, which is why we came up with the term Fanily, FANILY, but you also become close with the Coliseum employees or these A's employees. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have issues with the front office, but there's a lot of A's employees that are good people. There's a lot of Coliseum employees that are near and dear to our hearts. A lot of them that we've hung out with outside of A's games, even outside of baseball season. I mean, so that's I think one of the most heartbreaking things about this whole thing is just not seeing them on an everyday basis. Just like this year, I've only been to one game this year, and that was in August. That was the longest in my life that I went during the whole baseball season without going to an A's game. And I know that it feels weird now, but it just sucks thinking that, hey, I'm not going to be able to see Janice, or I'm not going to be able to see Derek, or whoever security guards there, or guest service person. So yeah, I do that's a good callback on that. Like I do think about these employees that have to deal with this too. So that sucks. Not gonna cry. We're good.
Not yet.
Now, Casey, do you still follow a lot of obviously you probably do follow all this stuff. You want to drop any breaking news out here with the
No, it's not like that. It's just that if we really want to talk about the A's and the value, it's because they play so many games, right? Like they play way more games than the Raiders played. They played more than the Warriors played. There's way more home games than the Ballers or the Roots. So I think that the value of the A's in Major League Baseball is just that they play so many home games, that there's so many opportunities to come together and so many shifts for people to work. And I think that's a valuable thing for the community. I will say this, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that what is going to happen in Sacramento, and news came out today that they're talking about if the A's make the playoffs, they won't even play playoff games in Sacramento. I can't even think of a bigger slap in the face to those people. Wait, no, I can. They're going to play in Sacramento, and they're not even going to put Sacramento in the name, right? Like, how insulting is that? And so when I look at the situation in Sacramento, I really, truly believe that Sacramento is an amazing sports market. I know, Anson, you're a Kings fan, aren't you? I mean, I think the Kings fans are great. They saved their team. I think Major League Baseball could absolutely work there, but I think what they're being offered up in the A's isn't right. And I think that what's going to happen is when they put artificial turf in Sacramento, because they can't have two teams playing a full schedule there, the River Cats and the A's, and keep that grass alive, because this is a fact. I looked it up. Sacramento is the sunniest city on planet Earth between the months of June and September. And when they put artificial turf on that field, it's going to be 30 to 40 degrees hotter than ambient temperature. And the temps are already up to 115 degrees out there. The second that happens, and Aaron Judge dives for a ball and burns himself alive, there are going to be changes, and they're going to happen fast. And I don't see Sacramento being the home of the A's for the next 3 or 4 or however many years, because it's an untenable situation. The commissioner at some point will have to step in. You saw just the other day, Scott Boras, the biggest agent in all of baseball, calling this into question. I don't know where the MLB Players Union is at on this. I cannot believe they're not making a bigger stink. You're seeing players now realizing what the situation is going to be out there. They can put in all the upgrades they want. It's not going to change the fact that that's not going to be a tenable situation for Major League Baseball. And I think when people realize the situation, there are going to be conversations about where they go until and if Vegas is ready. And I'd like to hope that Oakland would be ready to step up to the plate if that happened again. And maybe ASEG at that point owns both halves of the Coliseum site. We know that they've just made a deal with the A's to buy their half. They worked well with them in that sale agreement. Who knows? I don't think it's over yet. I'm not crazy, I'm telling you. But I just don't think Sacramento, a minor league park on artificial turf, is going to work. They're trying to say, oh, it's the same turf they use at the Diamondbacks ballpark. Great. That ballpark has a roof. There's no roof in Sacramento.
Yep.
That's not going to work.
And it's grass. I thought it was grass over there in at Diamondbacks. That's
no, I think it's the same exact turf as far as
wow.
Yeah,
I mean, it's such a like, and it boggles my mind. Like they want to not be here so bad that they're willing to just go through this whole embarrassment, you know. And it's so frustrating because, you know, I know that the Ballers are brand new and it's minor league baseball. I know that, but if they can move through all the bureaucracy and all the red tape in such a short amount of time, to me it just speaks volume to how the A's operate. You know what I mean?
Well, the A's could do that too. The A's could easily move through all that bureaucracy in just a short amount of time if they pay for it. That's what the Ballers did. The Ballers said, okay, we'll pay for it. I mean, granted, much different scales here. Right. I'm not trying to say that, you know, $1.6 billion at Raimondi Park is the same as $1 billion ballpark on the waterfront. But if the A's were willing to pay for the infrastructure, pay for the project themselves, and not sit back and wait for the government to do work for them, then they would probably already be playing at Howard Terminal. If they wanted a ballpark and a ballpark only, and not a $6 billion mega development with commercial and all these other things, and the lights in my office just turned out.
Then
over there.
Casey After Dark. Then they could have that. So I just think that when you look at that, yes, if you want to pay for it, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do. I'm going to turn the lights back on with my phone. Hold on.
If you're not
technology.
And this man just
you know what I've always thought, and this is like what I've thought about like a lot of other major leagues, like couldn't there be, let's just say the Pioneer Baseball League, all of a sudden all these owners are kind of like, you know what, screw MLB, let's put more money into this product, let's put more money into getting a major league status, right? Do you think that could ever happen? I mean, I always like I said, how come there's no other leagues to kind of, you know, compete against these? Because I see a great opportunity with the PBL, because they have, you know, things that Major League Baseball doesn't incorporate until later on, when it's all like when baseball's on a decline, you know, whereas in the PBL attendance is in the upstart, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it would take money, and a lot of it. I mean, let's just say like Shohei Ohtani becomes a free agent and some crazy person offers him like $5 billion to play for a Pioneer League team. Maybe you take it, and then you could do that. But it would take such an insane amount of money to do that. I don't know. I mean, but, you know, I guess like you saw what happened with golf when they came up with this whole other golf league, and then it all fell apart. I think it fell apart. I haven't paid much attention to that, to be honest, but it'll take money and a lot of it. And then if you have money, now where do you play? Like, what stadiums are you playing in? I don't know. I think it would be a lot, but I do like that there is at least a fun alternative, one with a home run derby after 9 innings, or an automatic pitch challenge, ball strike challenge. I like the rules. And I really enjoy going to these Pioneer League baseball games. And it's not like, I think people look at the Ballers sometimes so incorrectly. Like, they're not replacing the A's. Like, the Ballers are not ever going to be the Oakland A's. The Pioneer League, sorry to disagree with your point a little here, Jorge, but they're never going to be Major League Baseball. It's not the same. Like, it's an alternative, but it isn't a replacement. And I think that, like, some of our joy can be replaced by going to Ballers games, but it will never be the same thing. And I don't think they're trying to be the same thing. In fact, they're called the Bees for a reason. It's a joke, like on purpose.
I think the cool thing about the Ballers is, I mean, first of all, it feels really good going to a baseball game to where I don't have to worry about a team relocating. It just feels like fun. At the end of the day, it's just a game. The community's there. The vibes are great. It just shows that, I mean, you could build here if you just commit, instead of, and going back to your point, Casey, about them playing in Sacramento where players are just going to like combust on the field. Sacramento just had like one of their hottest summers in history. I just pulled up this I took a screenshot the other week because it was funny. So this is according to the National Weather Service, because we love facts here. It was the warmest summer, the second hottest July. It's the third all-time hottest high at 113. Was it in downtown Sac? The average temperature was 80 degrees, and in 2020 it was 79. It was the all-time warmest July, and they've had how many? 37 consecutive 100-degree days in downtown Sac. Have fun with that. With the Ballers, I just really it's I don't know. It's just like you said. It's not a replacement for the A's. That's how I look at it, and I also looked at it this way. In a perfect world, the Oakland A's would come back to Oakland and commit to Oakland, new ownership, this and that. If the Ballers were still in existence, I would still go to Ballers games. It's still fun. They still stand for Oakland. They still serve the community. So it's really refreshing to see a team do their city right. And they have good intentions, and everything that they're doing they're delivering. I mean, they said that they were going to make some mistakes along the way, a couple of bumps in the road, and of course, like, look how fast that stadium took to get renovated. Look how fast the whole process was. So if you haven't been to a Ballers game, come out. I know playoffs are going on. This Thursday is going to be sold out. It's going to be great. So yeah, I mean, shout out to the Ballers, man.
Yeah, to circle back though to Sacramento, like, I don't want to throw Sac under the bus completely. Like, that heat's always been a thing, but they play on natural grass there. And the fact that they're going to have to switch it to turf is my biggest objection, because I actually think Sutter Health Park is really, really beautiful ballpark. I think it's a great AAA park. A lot of people may or may not remember that used to be the A's AAA affiliate. Now it's currently the Giants. But some of my absolute favorite times covering baseball, Sutter Health Park, it used to be called Raley Field, because when I was A's insider for CSN, now called NBC Sports, they would pay to send the Giants insider on the road, but they didn't want to pay to put the A's insider on the road. So what I would do is, since I wasn't going on the road, I would just go to Sacramento and I'd cover the top prospects, or I'd cover the rehabbing players. And like, my favorite times were down there, like meeting, guys like Dan Straley or Sean Doolittle for a week before he was in the pros, or like going down there and watching Yoenis Cespedes rehab with the River Cats, or Manny Ramirez, you may remember, was an A for like a minute.
That's right.
He never made it to the major leagues, but he did play for the River Cats. And I remember going down there to cover Manny Ramirez.
Bro,
Hiro Nakajima?
Oh,
Nakajima? No, we remember the Matsui land sign?
Yeah.
Yep.
Had one for that said Manny. Oh, we just replaced Matsui.
Manny Land.
Yeah, we brought it.
But he never made it.
Oh yeah, I know. But I remember we literally brought those signs to then Raley Field, and yeah, that man, God, I forgot all about that.
My favorite story though. Hold on, what's my favorite story?
Go ahead.
Because I covered the River Cats, but I was the A's insiders. I was the only person they'd actually let me in the clubhouse and let behind the scenes. They wouldn't let any other media there do it. But I went back there one time and I saw Chris Biederman in a hallway. Shout out Chris Biederman, Sac B. Out of nowhere, Manny Ramirez comes screaming around the corner and just wraps us both up in this like huge bear hug, and neither of us had even met him before. It was so funny. We're like, what is happening, man? He's manhandling us. But he was actually a really funny, nice guy. And I just think that people never really got to experience him with the A's. It's kind of funny. Sorry, Jorge, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna ask because I mean, this is about you. I want to know more. Like, where did you get your start at? And then because you said that you were in the CSN before then. Where were you at? How did you get you into the sporting world?
Yeah,
And
career
then
paths are
politics.
fun. Yeah. Now I'm there. Career paths are funny because I was a journalism major. I wanted to be a beat writer for the A's. That was like my goal in life. I wanted to be a writer, like I wanted to write for the paper about the A's. And then as I started getting through college, I started realizing like that maybe that wasn't the most lucrative path in life. I don't know. But I decided I wanted to learn broadcast too. And at the time I was at SF State, the journalism major and the broadcast major didn't interchange. Like if you took broadcast classes, it didn't count towards your degree. So I took classes on my own. And then I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just get an internship at a TV station so I could learn TV. And shout out Larry Beal, ABC7. He got me my first internship there. And so I interned at ABC. This was like 2005, 2006. So it was around the time the A's got swept by the Tigers in the ALCS. We'll talk about that. But that was like my first introduction to actually covering the A's. Like my first credential ever was issued in 2005 by the A's. It was like a blue piece of paper because it was so long ago. I still have it. But what's funny, what people don't know is I was at SF State, still in college, interning at ABC, and then the weekend sports producer left. And I was the type of person where they had to kick me out every night. They'd have to force me to leave because I wanted to stay and learn and learn and learn. So that weekend sports producer actually taught me how to produce. And so they ended up hiring me as a weekend producer right out of my internship. And then the guy ahead of me left. So then I was running our sports department. I was still in college. And so I like raced to finish college, worked at ABC. And then they all told me it was like my job. I was going to be the staff guy. And then they brought in somebody else. And at that point I said, peace out. At that time, is right when they launched NBC Sports Bay Area in California. It was called CSN at the time. I was the very first person they interviewed. This is funny because Mindy Bach worked with me at ABC. She also worked at CSN. And when I didn't get the job, she told the president of CSN that he had to talk to me. She got me an interview. I got that job. We all started on the same day. Me and Brodie Brazil started on the very same day together at CSN. And yeah, we worked there for 7 years together. And then I left to go back to ABC for the staff job that I should have had in the first place. And then I left there a couple months ago to work in the Oakland Mayor's office. That's the whole story.
Man, look at that.
Dude, I remember the first time I met you, Casey. It was I got
a good Casey story too.
But this is when CSN was looking for commercials, just to hype up, like the fans for games and everything. And I remember, I forgot how I think they found us at in the bleachers.
I know what you're gonna say, and I cannot wait to tell you my response. Go ahead, keep going.
But then, so they recruited us for a commercial, and I remember we were just like walking in the studio, like all decked out green and gold. I think the team was on the road. I can't remember like what.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and we're just walking, and then I see this dude he's like, it's the bleacher crew. I was like, who is this dude? And it was Casey. And then we got to just talking, and I don't know, ever since then, I'll always kicked it off. And I'll never forget, Barack Obama was in town doing like a speech or something in the city. And as we were leaving the studio, like all the streets were blocked off, and like everything's like barricaded, and we had our flags and our drums. And I remember Obama saying that he grew up at, rooting for the A's. Like he was an A's fan growing up. So we were yelling, "Let's go Oakland!" and like in downtown San Francisco with the flag and the drums and everything. And then I remember Casey, he was just like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know." And I'm pretty sure. I think we met Brodie that day too, and there's some other people. But it was really cool just seeing like behind the scenes, and we took pictures behind the desk and everything. So yeah, that was a long time ago, and I know that.
I remember that day, and I'm going to tell you the funniest story about that day. So I'm pretty sure Mindy. I know Mindy was hosting. Shooty was probably on set, if I remember correctly, but. What was funny was that day Mindy had like a terrible migraine headache. and she was like soldiering through it. And then we just gleefully brought you all in with your drums, and you're all just like, bird, bird, bird. And she's just like dying. Oh my God, it was so funny. And she handled it like a pro because she is a pro. But man, I felt so bad for her because nobody knew she had like a terrible headache that day. And we brought you all in to bang the drums on set, like in the show. It was so funny. So I remember that, Dave, clearly.
Yeah, we aren't the quietest group when you get us all together. So yeah, I didn't know.
What do you mean? You know, when we're tailgating, I mean, we don't drink that much. We're just like chilling.
We're angels, little angels.
That's how I feel like it was on Twitter, and we were discussing. I mean, this when the A's were trying to move. I mean, everything falls back to the A's, and I think when Twitter was actually kind of a little bit less horrendous how it is now, and I feel like we started kind of having a conversation about what was going on in Oakland and on Twitter. And then I think at that time, Josh Donaldson was with the team. And every time he would hit a home run, I'd say, oh, it's time for a shot of JD. And I don't know how we're like, okay, we're going to meet up and take a shot of Jack Daniels. That's how we met. And then it was at the parking lot. And I still have that bottle that said keep days in Oakland. I don't remember this. And we both said, like, when the A's stay in Oakland, we're going to drink this thing.
That was our deal. That was our deal. We were going to go take that thing to Howard Terminal. And we were going to drink that Jack Daniels. But I think what's funny, and, you know, I used to always, like, I would come say hi or I'd run into you when I got to the ballpark, but I could never drink then. But I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, Jorge, I think it was the walk-off game in the ALDS against the Tigers. I had just stopped being A's insider. I went to the game kind of like incognito and just like sat in the third deck. But when they walked it off, I went out and found the tailgate. And I may have taken a shot with you then. But I remember hanging out with a bunch of A's fans that were like, what, dude, you rolled through? Like, because it was so crazy. And I actually wasn't working for once. But yeah, we did have a pact that we're going to take a shot of Jack together, or probably drink a whole bottle. When the A's get a new stadium, we'll do it at that site, and it won't be in Vegas. Guarantee that.
Hell no, and it won't be in Sacramento.
Only in Oakland.
Man, only in Oakland, baby.
So
that's
good.
No, sorry.
No, so like speaking of like just tailgating, all that stuff. I know, Casey, you spent many years covering the A's and covering the sports scene in the Bay Area. How hard was it knowing that you were going to show up to the Coliseum and you roll by and watch people tailgate? Because I know there's so many times where you would see us in the parking lot, be like, "What's up, Casey?" Like, come through. Like, no, I can't. I have to work. Like, all credentialed up when you're sitting. Like, how hard was it? I mean, I know it was a really good gig you had. I mean, anyone would trade places with you in an instant. But I know that there's some certain games where I knew that you probably would have been like, dude, I just want to just be in the
Oh, so like my own like issue was I was like when I actually finally made it to being an A's beat writer for CSN, like I accomplished my career goal and I was doing it, but I had to be the new guy on the beat. So I wanted to be there first. I was like the first one to get there. I was the last one to leave. I would see which players were coming and going. Like I would know if somebody got called up or sent down, or I'd see the lineup card before anybody else, or I'd see what pitcher was rehabbing and throwing at what distance. And like, I got so much information no one else had just from being the first there and the last to leave. But, you know, a lot of times I would drive through where the tailgate where I'd pop out and get like a deviled egg or something that somebody was cooking or barbecuing, or like they give it to me real quick and I'd go in. But I always wanted to be with you guys. But what was funny was, you know, like where the press box is positioned behind home, it looks out to the outfield. So I can't tell you how many times I'd look out to right field and just like smile because I'd like see you guys doing all your stuff and I'd be like, those are the guys right there. So I actually watched you guys a lot. It was funny is I obviously watched the game, but I would see what you guys are doing and I'd kind of live like vicariously through those moments.
And now we have kids that want to go to Roots games and our friends. Nina always remembering your daughters. It's crazy, dude. Like,
yeah, they love hanging out.
Feels like that SpongeBob meme where I think it's like SpongeBob or Squidward looking out the window and everyone's having fun, but you're just,
Yes, that's what it's like in the press
I want
box.
to be there.
That is absolutely. You know what's funny though? One day I was standing in the concourse. This is a true story, and kind of like where the auction stuff is. It's kind of where the media can come out to the concourse. And I had happened to just be standing there, and Roscoe came by, and Ross like tossed me an Oakland '68 shirt. I still have it. And so I went up to the press box, and someone actually took a picture of me holding it. And it's probably somewhere in my Instagram, way buried deep. But I held it up to like shout you guys out, and I posted it. And then my bosses got super mad at me because they're like, "No, you can't act like a fan. You're a journalist." No, whatever. So yeah. But I had that '68 shirt in the clubhouse, in the press box, because I was like, "Yeah, shout out '68s. Thanks for the shirt." And Ross, to his credit, is one of the only people that didn't see me and go, "Oh, hey, Brodie Brazil." So that's cool.
Brodie Brazil. Oh man, that is insane, bro.
That's my dude, but we get mistaken for each other so much. It's so funny. Like I can't tell you how many people like yell Brodie at me or Casey at him, and the worst person out of all of them was Shooty Babbitt, who we both worked with for like 7 years for me, like Brodie for over a decade. And he'd always be like, yo, Brodie, man, what's up? Or he'd say like, yo, Case, what's up to Brodie? And so me and Brodie actually put up signs in our office one day. And it was a picture of me holding my name and a picture of him holding his name. And it said, get to know your average looking white guy. And we just posted them all over the office. But my favorite mistaken identity story for Brodie ever, well, actually, there's probably two. One, I was with Shooty in the dugout, and Ty Waller was one of the coaches for the A's at the time. And Shooty goes, "Hey Ty, come over here, man. I want you to meet my boy here." So Ty comes over and he's like, "Ty, this is Brodie Brazil." And I'm like, "Thanks, Bip." And then Ty was looking at us like we were insane people. It was so funny, and we were just laughing hysterically because this Shooty called me Brodie.
You know what's funny, and I have a question after this. Obviously, what's funny is that Shooty, when we were, I think we were in the between the Championship Plaza and the Oracle Arena, and we were going to the the field to see batting practice one time, and Shooty was actually right there, and this dude behind me just goes, Ricky, and he completely ignores him. And I'm just like, I look back and he was kind of like close to me, and I was like, dude, that's fucking Shooty Babbitt right there. What the fuck you doing? And Shooty turns around, he's like, "Thank you, dog." And like,
that man is a treasure, by the way. He's one of the greatest people I've ever worked with. One of the best personalities, one of the kindest souls, just one of the most awesome people to work with and get to know. Shooty's just in a class of his own, just one of the all-time best. But yeah, the mistaken identity stuff's funny. I remember one time in the comment section, somebody called me a JV version of Brodie Brazil, which I was like, yeah, I'll take that. That's cool. So
shout out Skyline High right there.
So
no, I was actually going to ask you about the whole Brodie situation. Why do you? I mean, it's insane. Again, with all this bad press and just kind of down thing.
It's just an industry. It's a crazy industry. And sadly, like Brodie's one of my best friends. So I've known about this for a long time, and obviously couldn't and wouldn't have said anything about it. So when he put out the news, obviously was, felt bad and was very supportive of him. But we've been talking about this for a while now, and it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate for both the A's and the Sharks because, I mean, he's a staple for fans of both of those franchises. And, you'd be hard pressed to find a better host in the entire Bay Area, a more talented media personality in the entire Bay Area. And what people don't know about Brodie, or me, is that he and I spent so much time advocating for better Oakland sports coverage behind the scenes that no one ever saw. Like when we started NBC Sports Bay Area in California, it was CSN at the time, but it was 30% owned by the Giants. And me and Brodie were there together, and our bosses all came in from Philly, and they're like, "Oh, okay, this is the Bay Area. Everyone loves the Giants, Dave, whatever." And we spent so much time arguing with our bosses and fighting for better A's coverage, better A's stories, better A's resources. It was nonstop, me and him in the trenches. And I just don't think people realize that. Like a lot of people are always like, "Oh, it'd be great to see you guys team up." Like, no, dude, we worked together for 7 years. I was his producer. He was on set, and he and I, we took so much pride in having less resources than the giant shows, but putting out better shows than they were doing. That was our goal every day. It's like all the managers, all the people, they'd all be in the control room for the giant shows. We would do our shows in what we called A's Island because it was just us, man. We were in there like kicking ass. And it was so funny because we would put out just incredible shows and incredible content. And we did it with less than everybody, and we had so much pride in that. And what I can say about Brodie is I used to love when the A's were really good and we do pre and post, and you could just see like the energy he'd have, like when they'd have a big win, like he felt it in his soul. Like nobody understands that, but and Anson and me, like we feel this in our soul, like. And so we can be objective as journalists or reporters or people covering a story, but we know what it really means to the people. And I think that you're supposed to be able to separate yourself, and I believe I've done a good job of that. But like I had all this to draw off of for my life, my life of growing up at the Coliseum since I was a baby. So it just meant more to us, and it always has. And so I think that Brodie is he's an incredible asset. I don't think people know this, but this dude can shoot, he can edit, like a lot of his YouTube stuff. He puts this all together on his own. He's one of the most talented people I've ever met. And so I know he'll land on his feet, and whoever gets him will be insanely lucky.
Yeah, it's like wherever he ends up, whoever hires him, I honestly think he can do it on his own. He's, like you said, he's insanely talented. And the one thing I love watching you and Brodie is just the way that you covered the A's and like the Sharks and just sports. It shows that you guys actually care. You care about the team. You're a fan of not just the team, but you're a fan of the fans. Like you resonate with all of us. So like you said earlier, when the A's have like a huge walk-off win, you feel that. You feel the excitement. When they lose, like those games, like what the Adam Rosales game and Detroit. Oh, was it Detroit or was it Cleveland with the home run when
Cleveland?
Cleveland.
But when they thought it was a home run, but it wasn't.
And like you
that was
and
Cleveland.
That was Cleveland.
People were pissed, like on the post-game show, and you felt that. And it wasn't just like, oh, the A's lost another heartbreaker. It's like, no, you can tell that he was just like kicking the desk as he's watching it.
But it helps for context. Like some people just don't have that built-in context.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you can't cover something great without it, but I just think it helps. And I think the media landscape is changing so much. Like you don't want people to be a homer. Like you don't want people covering your team to be a homer or your broadcaster to be a homer. But I think that I guess where I got lucky, and this is a testament to you guys, is I started paying so much attention to the stadium stuff and the saga of what became of the A's relocation. And the story became you guys. Like it wasn't the team to a large extent. It was what you guys were doing, and that was cool because, I got to cover you and what you were doing. And that was probably the most fun times I've ever had, is that reverse boycott day or Fans Fest or all those different things. I mean, it was really neat just to like kind of see you guys become the story. And it was far more interesting story than the A's, who were god awful the last few years, to be honest. So it was just an interesting turn of events. It's something that you don't normally see happen in sports. You don't see the team kind of fade to the background and the fans actually become the story. And that's what made this unique.
Yeah, that was a wild time for all of us. Just doing all these random like media interviews. I remember like it got to the point to where, like I said, we have lives outside of this. I was doing interviews in like hotel rooms when I was at work. It was like I did one like before Fans Fest. Like for context, before Fans Fest, I almost missed my flight back home from Ohio I had to go out there for work. I was off of legit 2 hours of sleep. I lost 3 hours was it 3 hours because of the time zone difference. A lot of this stuff it's like a labor of love, but I can say George feels the same way. We don't do this for clout or anything like that. We do this because we care. We do this for the community. We do this for Oakland. We do this because we get looked over all the time. So it was an honor to be contacted by these random media outlets like NBC. ESPN was like the craziest one, because I was like, oh, I like George, you did outside the lines. He was just on 2 consecutive podcasts on ESPN.
Yeah, I saw,
It's
man.
like,
I saw. Well, you know what was the best thing ever? It was reverse boycott day. ESPN reached out to me. I was like, cool, I'm gonna be on Sports Center. Like, this is like a career dream for me. Like, and I, you know, Disney's owns ABC, owns ESPN. So I was like, yeah, it's perfect. Like, I should be the guy on Sports Center. Yeah. So I sit there, I do like this long interview, like straight up, sat in this very chair. I probably talked for like 20 plus minutes to Michelle Steele. They run the segment and it's like me for 5 seconds. And then it's like Anson. And the whole interview was Anson. I was like, I pop up for like a second and then it's just back to Anson. I was like, damn, these dudes are doing it.
I remember, yeah, that was coolest interview. Like, so I remember when so I was leaving the gym and then I get a text from George. He's like, "Hey, who wants to do an interview tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." I was walking to my car. I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I get home. I was like, ESPN. I was like, "What?" So I respond to the text. So like the next morning, I think I did the interview at like 8 a.m. or whatever. Yeah, 8
Yeah,
a.m.
it was super early in the morning. I
Yeah.
remember that.
I took the day off for the reverse boycott. And I was just on the call with Michelle Steele and a couple other producers, and we were just talking like this for about, it felt like 15, like almost an hour, just talking.
Yeah.
And I was like, "So are we gonna do the interview?" She's like, "Oh no, we're done." I was like, "Wait, when did you record?" She's like, as soon as I saw your face, we hit record, but we got all we need. I was like, "Oh, that's how TV."
Yeah.
But
I don't think
That's
any of us were ready for what that day was
that.
going to bring.
Yeah, and you know what's that's crazy because all the interviews are kind of just like that, like very chill back. For the ones that you kind of know what their story and what they want to do, some are just kind of lazy and just like, give me whatever soundbite it is and we'll run with it. But I want to ask you, Casey, because you know, I've been fighting to keep days in Oakland since 1998. Blah blah blah. Then once like the Let's Go Oakland Keep the A's, this is the whole other group that was trying to keep the A's with Doug Boxer and Don Canals and all that. And I remember the city of Oakland at that time asked me to come as a fan and sit during this press conference. And I called in sick and I went to the press conference where, you know, Don Canals sits there and, you know, we want to buy the A's and keep them here, yada yada yada. And then one of the people there told me, you're gonna get used when you're fighting for this, for what you love. So just remember that. But now I remember that vivid, like that saying. He told me that, and I just remember now that I'm sitting here, I don't feel used. I feel like I've gotten so many good things from this. Like I've got a good relationship with you, friendships with other people that I am so grateful to have now. Do you feel the same way? I mean, do you have some sort of like, look, I know it's kind of in a bad way. We got all these friendships and all these connections, but now it's better off now, basically. I don't know.
I think I'm going to look back, and I hope I look back and the A's are still in Oakland somehow,
Yeah.
some way. But I look back on this someday, and this is going to be the highlight of my entire career because it wasn't about like a job. It wasn't about content or clout, like you said earlier. It was about doing what was right and fighting for something that I absolutely believed in. And I put it all out there. Like there were so many times people don't realize like this wasn't my job. Like ABC could have cared less if I never mentioned the A's or Howard Terminal ever. Like I did all that on my own because I wanted the truth to be out there and I wanted the story to be out there. And I spent countless hours talking to people on the phone and exchanging messages with people and learning everything I possibly could about every single situation, be it legal or environmental or economical or political or all these things I never should have had to know as a sportscaster. And and to ABC's credit, they would let me run with it when it was important. They'd let me lead every show, or they'd, you know, like if I said something big is happening, they'd be like, "Good, you're on set, like cook." You know, they never once told me not to say something or not to do something or to do anything differently. They just let me cook, and I did it all purely out of passion and because I knew it was the right thing to do. And I think that when I look back on this, no matter how good or bad it ends up, I'll probably believe these are the best years of my life and career because of just the chaos, the fun, the uncertainty, the like all of it, like hanging out with you guys. Like you guys asked me to be MC of Fans Fest. That was like one of the greatest days of my life. Like I brought my kids, brought my wife out, like stuff like that I'll never experience again. And I think that if you look at like this whole thing behind me and all this tokens of stuff I've kept, it's all stuff from like reverse boycotts or the Cell movement or Fans Fest. Like people just give me stuff and then I'd give it away to somebody else because I wanted the fans to have it. And then someone later, like Todd, for example, like, dude, you got to have one of these Cell shirts. Like every time one of you guys would hand me one and someone would be like, oh, I didn't get one. I'd be like, here, take mine. And I always gave all my stuff away. And then eventually down the road, it was Todd who was like, you got to have this stuff. And he brought me all of it. He's like, just keep it. Like
that's
just,
yeah.
So it's just funny how like, I'll have all these tokens and someday when I'm more detached from it and not partial or partisan in any way about it, I'll frame it all and make something cool out of it. Because I think it's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. But, you and me, and Anson and all the people, we'll still be going to games together. We'll probably be watching Roots games at the Malibu site or maybe still at the Coliseum. We'll see. But, I just think it's been a fun. Yeah, Raimondi. I'll be there. You guys see me out there all the time. So we'll keep it going.
It's funny when I keep hearing people say like, oh, the A's are leaving. What's there to do in Oakland sports wise? Like I have not been this busy as a fan like lately in a long time with Ballers, Roots, Soul, just everything that we do. So I mean, the sports scene is not dying here at all. I mean, like if there's no Major League Baseball that's going to be here next year, we all know it. Just get over it. Like just come out and support. But yeah, just see this community, man. Like it's little stories like this. This is what we want to do. We want to just showcase, put it on a platform and just let people know. It's like, this is why we fought so hard. This is why we keep fighting so hard. It's because we are trying to keep this tradition alive. We're trying to keep the community together. A lot of people keep asking, hey, what are we going to do now? Like, what are you guys going to do? I'm like, well, I'm at Ballers games. I'm at Roots games.
That reminds me of like Pinky and the Brain. Remember that commercial? And they'd be like, what are we going to do today, Brain? Or like, it's like same thing we do every day, try to take over the world. You guys just going to keep doing the same thing you're doing every day. And I think that in the end, like, again, I don't think this story is anywhere close to the conclusion of being told. I think there's still many, many turns and many iterations of this situation, but I'll leave you with the last thing. It's the same thing I said at the beginning. It was always the people. It was always you guys. It was always the fans. It was always the times we had together. It was always, going to the game with your great grandpa, your grandpa, or your dad, your family, taking your kids. Like that's what it's always been about for me. And I think it'll stay that way, whether the A's are here or not.